attempting to speak? Are those our guest speakers today?
You can definitely unmute Melissa, please. I don't know Michael, but you're welcome to join. So I'd like to get started right now so we can keep an eye on time and be respectful of everyone's time. We've got 1 hour scheduled for this presentation, and hopefully we can keep it just to that. So thank you all for joining our PEPP Revised 3rd Edition Highlights webinar. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. First, I'd like to let everyone know that we will be recording the webinar, so it will be available for you all later, as well as anyone else who was not able to join us. In addition to the recording, we can also make the slide presentation available to you. Because of the size of the group today, all of your lines will be muted so that we can try and keep this as orderly as possible. We'd like to build in some time for questions at the end, so we can go ahead and unmute the lines, or you can feel free to pose questions to the host throughout the chat function. You can do that throughout the presentation or at the conclusion, and we'd be happy to take your questions. Or after the fact, you can send an email to the meeting organizer and we can follow up and answer your questions. Today we're fortunate to have 2 great presenters, beginning with Dr. Susan Fuchs, who's the co-editor of the revised 3rd edition of PEPP. She's also an associate director at the Division of Emergency Medicine at the Ann and Robert Laurie Children's Hospital of Chicago, and a professor of pediatrics at the Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine. And we're also joined by Keith Whitmire, who is a nationally registered paramedic and member of the PEPP Steering Committee and an EMS education specialist at the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine. Very fortunate to have you both present, and thanks for being available to speak with us today. Without further ado, Dr. Fuchs, I can pass it over to you and kick us off, please.
Okay. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today as well. We're very excited about the new PEPP Revised 3rd Edition. So we definitely wanted to let you know what we did and different things, and also other future things. I'll give you a brief overview of what we're going to discuss, and then we will continue. So once again, we'll talk about what we changed and revised in the 3rd edition updates. A lot of it has to do with the 2015 American Heart Association CPR and Emergency Cardiovascular Care Guidelines, because they changed a few things, so we want to be up to date. There's also been a group, it's called the Pediatric Life Support Collaborative, and we've been working through many organizations in terms of the American Academy of Pediatrics. We'll get to all the group, but a lot of the NAEMT, Emergency Nurses Association, American College of Emergency Physicians, and we've tried to make it so that everybody is on the same page, that when you're taking a course, that we're all speaking the same language, and we'll get more into that. We also want to update people on course format options, how many hours of continuing education credit you'll get, required course materials, course completion requirements, registration process, course coordinator teaching requirements, helpful resources, and kind of the future and what's ahead for PEPP. Next, Brian. Okay. A couple things first with the 3rd edition updates. Once again, we did incorporate the new 2015 American Heart Association guidelines. There were a few changes in the pediatric life support, changes in advanced pediatric life support, as well as the neonatal resuscitation program. So we actually did do some updates on that. Also, there were some online modules that we're going to talk about, and we're revising. Also, some updates to the instructor toolkit. Like I said, we will be kind of working on that. That will be for the course coordinators. And in terms of, so people sort of know we're updating files, and then we will let the course coordinators know on the website. Once again, we'll go through a couple of things. There's a new, whenever you purchase a textbook, you'll actually get a free electronic book with that. For those who want to teach PEPP in Spanish, there's now a new textbook available. And like I said, we do want to also let people know we have some supplemental resources. There's the website, Facebook page, so lots of other things to continue to chat on. Next. Okay. Once again, in terms of the new 2015 American Heart Association CPR and ECC guideline highlights. They have revised a little bit about the BLS healthcare provider algorithms, both single and 2 or more rescuers. They have not changed anything. It's still, compressions first, but there are a couple little changes in the actual algorithm. In terms of in pediatrics, in the prior versions, they had taken out lidocaine. It's back in, so lidocaine was added, or amiodarone for resistant VFib and pulseless VTAC in pediatrics. There is a new NRP algorithm, and there's definitely updated management of infants born with meconium. So that's probably one of the biggest changes that you'll see. So we definitely in the newborn chapter wanted to make sure that we were updated with those changes. Next. Other things just in the book just to tell you about, there's been a couple terminology changes. As much, we used to call it sudden infant death. Now it's actually called sudden unexpected infant death. So that's a little bit, it encompasses what we used to terminology of, sort of SIDS. Now it's SUID. But in the death of the child chapter, we have updated information about causes in that. We've added subcutaneous injection procedure. We obviously updated the cardiopulmonary resuscitation procedure based on new changes. And we've tried to use the term spinal motion restriction versus spinal stabilization. We understand that that's, undergoing lots of changes all through the U.S., and people are sort of in the midst of different things, but I think the term spinal motion restriction is the new terminology, so we wanted to definitely incorporate that. We still do have a spinal motion restriction procedure because I don't think it's gone, but at least in terms of people are definitely adapting things. Next. Okay, just giving you a little background about the Pediatric Life Support Collaborative. Like I said, we've had a number of conference calls, phone calls from all of these different organizations. As I mentioned, the American Academy of Pediatrics, American College of Emergency Physicians, the American College of Surgeons Committee on Trauma. Those are the people who do the HLS course. The American Heart Association, obviously, which is a big factor. The Emergency Medical Services for Children, Emergency Nurses Association, the National Association of EMS Educators, National Association of EMS Physicians, National Association of EMTs. So we really work together to try and make sure that when you take a course, whether it's PEPP, whether it's PALS, whether it's EPC, whether it's HLS, that we're all talking the same language, because it's been very confusing for people when one uses one terminology and one course uses another terminology. Next. So things like just sort of using the same approach across the board. Obviously, pediatric assessment is a big factor, and that everyone has agreed that the pediatric assessment triangle really does form a general impression. And then the terminology we've used is primary assessment, and that includes airway, breathing, circulation, disability, and exposure. Then we've used the term secondary assessment. That includes the focus, history, exam, ongoing reassessment. In there is also the sample mnemonic. And then sort of the third part is the diagnostic assessment. And that's, in a sense, from the standpoint of EMS, there are certain things that you can do from a diagnostic assessment, even in the ambulance, whether it's a blood sugar, whether it's an EKG, not necessarily in kids that you transmit them, but you could do that. But there's certain things that then in the emergency department, such as a chest x-ray, other labs are done. But we really want to make sure everyone's on the same page. Next. There's also a couple of things that we all noticed as we were going through this process, that, what is hypoxemia? One person would declare it, under 94, one would be equal or less than 94. So we've all kind of come across the terminology that we like in terms of hypoxemia, traumatic brain injury, concussion. In terms of what is a concussion, I mentioned already spinal motion restriction, status epilepticus, and that's specifically more in terms of the time frame about what is status. That's changed over the course of years from, in essence, 30 minutes to 15 minutes to 5 minutes from the EMS standpoint. And then the other key is hyperventilation. We understand that when you have traumatic brain injury, in some cases you might need to do that, but the key thing about that is you have to be able to monitor end-tidal CO2 or PCO2 to make sure you're not doing too much hyperventilation and keeping the numbers reasonable at about 35. Next. Okay, a couple other things. So in terms of those are sort of some of the big overviews that you will see, not just in PEPP, but in some of the other courses, like I said, in terms of terminology, in terms of using the PAT. Other things that we're going to do in terms of, we've had this course format options for a little bit of time, but we know it's caused some confusion. So the other thing is that we just want to make sure that not just the students, but the PEPP coordinators understand this. We understand that, now it's really hard to provide, sometimes 1 day of on-site education, some days for the ALS course, 2 days. So then we've developed a hybrid course. And this makes it easier that you can do a lot of the online learning at home or on your spare time, and then then you come on site for the scenarios and hands-on skill station. So that's really the hybrid course, and we're going to get into exactly hours and other things. The on-site course obviously is for people who prefer to learn by attending a traditional instructor-led classroom course. This does include the case-based lectures, the videos that still exist in PEPP, as well as small group scenarios and the hands-on skill stations. Next. One really key factor is the American Academy of Pediatrics is an accredited provider of CSBEAMS credit, which is the Continuing Education Coordinating Board for Emergency Medical Services. And so participants who successfully complete the PEPP course are eligible to receive ConEd credits. You must select the option to receive the credits during the access code redemption process, so that's really important. And then the CSBEAM certificates will be delivered electronically. So the key thing is when you, and we'll talk about access codes in a second, but when you actually select whether you're going to take a hybrid course or on-site, that you select that you want the CEUs, because it does change based on the courses. Next. Okay, this gives you an idea that there is some difference. When you're on site, you actually have 9.25-hour course, but it's 8 hours of education in classroom. This is the BLS course, and you get 8 hours of credit. When you do the hybrid course, it's actually you're doing 9 online modules at home, and then you have a 4-hour on-site course for the hands-on skill station instructor credits. So it winds up being an 8.75-hour course with 8.5 hours of education, and therefore you get 8.5 hours of credit. So you do get half credit extra for doing the hybrid course, but once again, you do have to complete the online modules before you attend the 4-hour on-site course. Next. For the ALS course, remember it's a 2-day course, so when you look at that and you say, why are the hours more than the credits? Because we do need to give you some breaks in between and some lunchtime. But so it is a 16.75-hour course with 14 hours of education. Once again, 2 days usually in the classroom, and you get 14 CSBEAM hours. For the hybrid course, once again, it is a 14-hour course with 12.5 hours of education, because you do need to attend an 8-hour on-site course. And that's, once again, following completion of 9 online modules. So you get 6 hours of credit for that. So your total credit hours is 12.5 CSBEAM credits. Next. Okay, a couple of things just in terms of required course materials. We do want 1 PEPP instructor toolkit per course coordinator. So once again, so the course coordinator has the information that they need. When you do this, the 1 PEPP revised 3rd edition textbook. Now, once again, this includes an access code and the ebook for a student to be reviewed prior to the course. So we would, the preference is that you just do some reading before you attend the course. And then when you actually have the book, you'll see that there's 1 access code per student. Codes are located in front of the cover of the book. And then once you access them and once you redeem them, it's good for 1 year. Yes, you can purchase some codes separately, but like I said, so if you are going to do some librarying of the book, every student needs their own access code. and that's really the key, is access codes are required for each student. And like I said, you can't use the same access code for 2 students. You can use, ideally, you can have one book, but they each have to be able to access either the book, the e-materials, and other things so that they can register and then get their credits. In terms of how course materials can be purchased, it's through the American Academy of Pediatrics. The number and website is listed. And Jones and Bartlett Learning, once again, the phone number and websites are listed. Next. So here's the issue with the access codes. So as I said, in terms of once you've redeemed the access code, it's only good for one person, but you can get additional access codes for $60.95 through Jones and Bartlett Learning. And then if there's any problems with that, you contact Jones and Bartlett Tech Support. And that's really a key factor, that we understand that sometimes it's hard to have many books. The books are, library, they're shared, but you have to have your own access code. So each student will need an access code. Next. I think this is where, in terms of Keith, is going to take over.
Yep. Thank you very much, Dr. Keith. First of all, I just want to say happy EMS week to everybody. Thank you guys all for taking time out of your busy schedule. And remember, what we do out in the field matters. So, thank you guys, and keep up the great work. So I'm going to be going ahead and going over how to register a course as a course coordinator. Next slide, please. Okay. Just for your reference here, if you guys want, you can actually zoom in on the screen. We can't increase the size anymore, but you can zoom in as we're talking about this. So how do we go ahead and register a course? Remember, it's recommended that you have everything set up at least 30 days in advance, and you have to determine whether you're going to be doing a on-site or hybrid course. And you make those decisions as you're going through, and you do your registration at the PEPP site, which is www.peppsite.com, and you register through you register the course through the online database by clicking on courses and rosters after you've gone ahead and logged in with your course coordinator credentials. So you go through, fill out your dates, everything that's going, all the appropriate information here, and enter in the required information and hit submit, and you will get a confirmation email. Next slide, please. So how does the course coordinator set up a roster? There's a few different components to the roster, and we're going to go through them. But when you're setting up your roster, you've got your student component, you've got your instructors, and then you have your medical advisors component. When you're going through, you have to identify each person as you're putting the information in manually, and we'll show you that process. But this is really where the access codes come into play that was mentioned earlier. Everybody has to have an individual access code because that's how you're going to retrieve that information. You're going to be retrieving it based off the email that those people use to register for that course. Next slide, please. So setting up your course roster, go ahead and search for students through click on the open roster, and you accept students into the course through the course registration tab. And again, please feel free to zoom in. If you are on a computer, you'll see a little magnifying glass, and you can increase the percentage on the bottom left-hand corner. So when you're doing this, you have to ensure that each student has the pre-course work done prior to the course itself. What I generally do is I ask them to print off the certificate of completion before they come in. So I ask them to bring that in. Or, sometimes they'll just email me a PDF or things like that, and that's fine. But they have to have that information done. This is whether they do the on-site or the hybrid. Because the on-site has that pretest aspect, but the hybrid also has online modules. And depending on which option you choose, you have to do that. Then you want to go ahead and communicate to the students to select open enrollment in their Jones & Bartlett Learning account to complete their pre-course work. This is something that you do as you're enrolling students, whatever your system process is. The last classes that I've done, I just did 300 students for Cincinnati Fire Department. We put the entire, all the paramedics through the program. And for there, we went through and we told them all that they had to register with their email account for the city. And then we also told them that they had to go through, click on the open enrollment, and we just sent out a quick email explaining the registration process. And it was pretty straightforward, and everybody was pretty compliant. We didn't really run into any issues. Next slide, please. So setting up the course, you have to manually adjust in the drop-down whether or not a student passes or fails. You can go through and click everybody on there. And it's not circled in here, but you can also remove students if they don't show up for a class. Like for the classes that I was talking to you about previously, we had 300 students, but we also offered multiple classes. Some students would register for one, but they weren't able to make it, so they had to go to another one. So we just would remove them, and then they would go ahead and enroll them into the other course. Contact any students who have not completed their pre-course work and address the issue. It's a balancing act because you really do need to be pretty firm. And we understand that there's technical issues and things like that that happen, but they're not going to get their card and all this stuff without that pre-course work being done. So it has to be done. The onus is on the students, but we do identify that there is some issues and there's some flexibility if needed, but you really want it done before the class, and that is the absolute preference. Next slide, please. All right. So setting up a course roster, going through, you see the drop-down bar on the top right, and this is where you're going to pick your medical director, any assistant instructors or students, and that's where you're going to add your medical director and students. Now remember, this is an important fact for this course is you can only have one medical director for the course. So if you are in an urban area and you're using any of the pediatric emergency medicine fellows, then if you have more than one physician, you've got your medical director, and then everybody else will be listed as assistant instructors. So go ahead, and all you need to do is put in the medical director, put in their name, their email address, and just submit it and add the medical director, and it pops right up. Next slide, please. So course completion requirements. Again, goes back to which track did they do? Did they do the hybrid or did you do the on-site track? But the course requirements will vary slightly depending on the track you chose. Next slide, please. So to complete for course completion requirements, the complete pre-course work prior to PEPP is what needs to be done. The on-site, if you're doing on-site, again, you're just doing the pre-test, but it still needs to be done, and that's what that access code is for. If you're doing a hybrid, then they have to go through all those online modules before they come in. And like I said, if you can get them to print out the certificate of completion when they're finished, or if they can email you a PDF, either way, it's not a requirement by PEPP, but it does help as a course coordinator to keep everything organized and to have everything set up. So you've got your roster that everybody signed in on, and then you can go ahead and cross-tabulate everybody on the roster versus all the certificates that you have. And it helps. I usually have everything done. I know that I've got everything ready by the end of the course, so when I'm going ahead to submit everything, I know that I have everything I need. Obviously participate in the PEPP course and all the components of it, and then they have to pass the final examination. Students who successfully complete the course taught by the PEPP course coordinator, they are eligible to receive PEPP course completion certificate, and that is valid for 2 years. Next slide, please. So the course coordinator teaching requirements. Individuals who wish to become PEPP course coordinator or wish to reactivate their instructor status, they have to be a physician, registered nurse, pediatric nurse practitioner, PA, EMT, or paramedic. But I believe that, I know it says EMT or paramedic, I believe it is EMT, AEMT, or paramedic. Have EMS teaching experience, and this has changed slightly from what it has been in the past. And if any of you guys have taught before, if you guys remember going through the course coordinator requirements, they used to say that you have to have teaching experience as expressed in, being an American Heart Association ACLS instructor, BLS instructor, or an NAMT AMLS or PHCLS instructor. They have made it a lot broader. It's not that you have to be an instructor in another certification course. It's just that you have to have that experience as an instructor in EMS. And then they also have to successfully complete the PEPP provider course at the level for which they wish to conduct the course. And then after they do that, they're going to go ahead and do the course coordinator modules online. Next slide, please. I'm sorry. So you go ahead and submit the electronic application to the American Academy of Pediatrics through the PEPP website, and then you do your online orientation. And this is slightly different than previous editions, where previous editions you could have an on-site component where a course coordinator could go through all the orientation modules, and then they could sign off on new course coordinators. Now, any course coordinator, or I'm sorry, anybody who is interested in becoming a course coordinator has to do the online orientation module. And then they also have to be knowledgeable of the most current PEPP course materials, and they have to teach at least 2 courses within 2 years to maintain their status. Next slide, please. I think is this where we're switching back up again?
Keith, I think you have this last slide, and then it goes to Dr. Duke.
Okay. So a couple of resources. The PEPP site is awesome. There's a ton of information. I highly suggest, if you're sitting around at the station or something, just go ahead and go through it, because there really is a ton of information on that website. And I know, if you've got orientation, you've probably seen, the basic components and things, but there's so much more on there than is really covered in the orientation. And then also, if you guys are on social media, the AAP has a fantastic Facebook presence. Follow them. They're awesome. They're always posting pictures from different conferences they're at. When Melissa and I were doing simulations at EMS World last year, all those pictures were posted up online, and they post interesting and relevant articles. I just saw some stuff a little while ago off from EMSC, so they're very, very active on social media, so please go ahead, like their page, follow them. They do a great job. And then always, if you have any questions, they're always available by email and phone, and they are the promptest people to get back to you. They are on the money. They're so quick about it. So really, they're always there to help, and they really do a fantastic job. So I think that's it for me. Next slide, please.
Okay, this is Susan again. Just to kind of give you a brief what's ahead for PEPP, we are working on a PEPP renewal course. In terms of things have not been completely finalized, but the idea that, yes, we could do a kind of a shorter renewal course, so that way you can still do some hands-on skills, but it wouldn't have to be necessarily the 8 hours. One of the big things that we understand people do want the C-SPEAM credits, but it's something to think about. We are also going to have a needs assessment survey, and for everybody online and anybody who is involved in PEPP or EPC, this is going to be a survey about what are the gaps in pediatric continuing education. What we'd like to do is really get your input so that we can build new modules. We have some ideas, but we really would, want your ideas about where do you think you need, some additional education, some additional modules. Where are sort of the gaps, so that when you receive this survey, please fill it out, please return it, because like I said, without that input, we obviously have people involved in EMS, but we really want, everybody's input about where should we, do the next kind of module, what should we focus on when we actually do, if we do new chapters or new online scenarios, anything. The other thing is we are working on a new children with special health care needs module. I know that's very difficult for a lot of people. There's lots of kids out there with whether it's chronic illnesses, technology-assisted children, but that always is a very key area because there's not much out there. And we also are developing a library of online modules with the National Association of Emergency Medical Technicians. We do understand that they use the PEPP text for their EPC module, but in terms of working together to really have online resources for people taking either EPC or PEPP, so everyone could really do some good sharing. Next slide, I think, is really just some questions for you.
That is correct, Dr. Fuchs, and thank you very much, and thank you, Keith, as well. We're doing really great on time here, so we have plenty of time for questions, and I hope there are many because we have two great experts here that can answer just about any content or administration-related question. We were going to handle this over chat. We've got a good group of people here, about just over 70 folks on the line. I think that we can open it up. We can unmute the lines, Courtney, for questions as long as everyone is orderly. They can chat their questions to you directly as well. We received one question over chat so far, and that is, how many days in advance must a course be registered? Keith, that might be a good one for you.
Brian, I just want to mention I am unmuting the line. If someone does not want their line to be unmuted, they can just go ahead and select *6 on their phone, which will remute their line for them. But with that said, please go ahead. We can go ahead with the question. Sorry.
Thank you, Courtney.
Okay,
again, if anyone wants to mute their lines, they can just hit *6, and that will mute your individual line. But hopefully, we can have a bit of a dialogue here and open it up for the entire group without being too disruptive. Okay, again, the first question was, how many days in advance must the course be registered?
Absolutely. Brian, thanks for the question. This is Keith again. So the recommendation, if you look in the instructor toolkit, is 30 days, and that really is what we really shoot for. They may be able to make exceptions, but I definitely wouldn't count on that. So you really want to try and have it in 30 days for your teaching. But that's what the recommendation is. Does that answer the question?
It does for me, sure. Very good. Okay. The next question we see is if there are any plans for updating the videos within the course.
You'll have a glitter patch.
Brian, this is Melissa Marks at the AAP. I manage the PEPP program, just for everyone on the call. We are in the process of updating the video clips right now. Dr. Fuchs actually assisted us with updating those, so I know they are in the works. And once they are completed, I believe they'll be placed online through the website, through the course coordinator only section.
Okay, great, thanks. The next question, or maybe more of a suggestion, but I think it's valuable, is if the online course can become more video-based instead of slide-based, if there's an opportunity to incorporate more video in that.
Hi, Brian. It's Melissa. I think I can take that question. We are certainly working on providing our audience with some more engaging and interactive features, and we are certainly working on some stimulation-based features with our new modules, which will be part of the new PEPP renewal course. So you certainly will be seeing some new, fresh materials coming in the next year.
That's great. Thank you, Melissa. I don't have any questions in chat in front of me right now, so I would like to open this up for anyone who'd like to pose their question over the phone. If you just want to announce your name and where you're from and your question, we'd be happy to take it. Okay, one question on the, is everyone expected to purchase new revised 3rd edition manuals, or will they be provided to existing programs?
Brian, can you repeat the question again? Are they asking if they'd be provided to assisting programs, you said?
Everyone would be required to purchase the new third edition, or if they would be provided to existing programs. You know, they will not be provided, gratis at least, to existing programs, but if anyone would like to speak about whether or not it would be required to roll over immediately, if there'd be any sort of grace period, I suppose, might be a way to frame the question.
Sure. We certainly don't have a required date as to when you should be using the revised third edition, but we're certainly encouraging that you start purchasing the new updated content as of now. As Dr. Fuchs had alluded to, it has all of the new updates from the guidelines and kind of the recommendations that we are moving forward with. So certainly any new textbooks that need to be purchased, you should just be purchasing the revised third edition from now on.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. All right, this next one's a few lines long.
This is Keith.
Go ahead, Keith.
Oh, Brian? Yeah, I just wanted to also add one of the cooler features with the new revised third edition is it does also come with that ebook, which I think is a big component. I know a lot of my students have gone to ebooks and just having everything on their iPad, so that's been a big help as well. So.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to try and read this one as best as possible. In the hypothetical that you're having an on-site course and you set it up as an on-site course, students take the pretest, however, they've signed up for the hybrid course. How can they go fit once completed? How can they get the card and certificate? If that makes sense, and if not, I welcome the whoever had asked that. Pete, maybe, if you could chime in and clarify the question if I didn't ask it properly.
Yeah, it's more to do with if you're having an on-site course and you've got students that are doing the pretest, but they clicked on as far as joining the course, they've clicked on the hybrid versus on-site.
This is Keith again. I know that I feel like we ran into that issue with one or two students, and I'm trying to think of exactly what we did. I know honestly it's a bigger burden on the students because they end up going through it's a redundant material. They go through the material online, and then they go through it in person as well. But I can't remember exactly what we did. Melissa, do you remember what we did for that?
Okay, hi, this is Gina from the AAP. If your student does redeem an access code for the incorrect pre-course work, we can definitely change that for them. They just need to contact the PEPP program, and we can do that really quick over the phone. It takes about 30 seconds, so we can do that for them.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. We are in great hands. Lots of great support here on the call today. Next question is when the PEPP renewal course will be available. Melissa, I don't have that date in front of me. Are you able to answer that?
It's definitely something that we're working on now. I don't have a firm date, but certainly I'm anticipating in the next 6 months that we should have at least the first module and subsequent information about what the renewal course will look like. And that would certainly be coming via an e-blast to this audience. So that would come through the Jones and Bartlett Learning email that we work with them on. And we'd also be posting all of this on our Facebook page as well.
Great, thank you. We received an inquiry from Byron, who's currently working in Abu Dhabi, and is wondering if he can do a hybrid course while working in the Middle East.
Yes, we would.
As far as that goes, would he be able to get back to somewhere that has a live component? Because that's, remember, with the hybrid course, you have the online modules, but you also do have to participate in the live components, which are very skill and scenario-based. So if he can get back to somewhere, like he's going to be traveling somewhere to a site that has it, then he can take it, and he can take the online component anywhere he has a good internet connection. But he has to be able to attend a live course in order to complete it.
Okay, thanks. And another international inquiry, any information about how to teach the course as international faculty? Are there any differences in the domestic and international course administration policies in particulars?
Hi, this is Susan. In terms of the specific policies, you know, I'm going to let Melissa talk to that because we've done some international courses. The key thing is, you know, who you're training and if there's differences in EMS and making sure that the medical director understands the local, you know, protocols and EMS. You know, there may be some differences in medication. There may be just some differences from the standpoint of what, you know, different people can do, whether they're basic, whether they're paramedic. So I think those are the key things that whoever's putting on the course to make sure that they are following local protocols, you know, from their own course. Yes, it's PEPP, but we understand that things are different in different parts of the world.
That's exactly right, Dr. Fuchs. Thank you. And there's definitely no administrative issues from our end. Certainly, you know, we welcome international groups to teach the PEPP program.
Okay, we received one more question about whether the old edition would be obsolete, and I think, Melissa, you already covered that. It's still available and can be used, but with all of the new content, we'd like to get everyone to roll over to the revised 3rd edition as soon as possible.
That's correct. Thanks, Brian.
Sure. I see a recommendation that in the future that we try and coordinate with the AHA guideline revision schedule so that the programs don't have to repurchase materials more often than every 5 years. That's good input.
This is Susan, too. Another thing is, you know, we have tried to do that with revisions. Obviously, you know, the American Heart Association may, you know, they've thought about potentially changing and they don't do it every 5 years, that they do it continually. So obviously we're going to keep abreast of what they do. And we have tried to, you know, when we come out with a new book and we know something is coming, you know, and if it was 5 years, whatever, that's why we were really ready to go with this revision because, you know, the minute the new guidelines came out, you know, we understood we needed to change, say, the shock, the cardiovascular, and neonatal. But hopefully in the future they may not be doing it on that 5-year basis, but just on a continual basis. So we will kind of keep abreast of that.
Okay, thank you. We've got a strong international contingent on the phone today, which is great. We received another question about becoming a course site in Saudi Arabia, and I think we've already talked a little bit about international course setup. I think a good way to, for next steps for anyone who has more specific administration questions or how to get set up is to simply email the AAP at pep@aap.org with any questions around materials or getting set up as a new center, whether it's in the U.S. or abroad. They'd be happy to help
Brian. Yep. Brian, this is Pete again. Just one other thing, the PEPP site, if you go there, that's where the course coordinator module is, and there's a ton of information on there. So if you are interested, the PEPP site has the course. If you've been through the course already, that's where you would go ahead and get started on that process.
Great, thanks, Keith. The next question is, I'm not sure if this is spelled correctly, but is there replication of the instructor from PALS to PEPP? Is replication the right term? Does that make sense?
Oh, hi, this is Susan. The issue with PEPP is we really don't have a separate instructor course. I am a PALS instructor, and I just had to renew everything through that. I had to take the class again. I had to do my instructor materials online and in class. We don't have that as an instructor per se for PEPP. Once again, we said, you know, in terms of when you're an instructor, we rely on the course coordinators to, you know, select instructors who know the material, understand what pre-hospital care and PEPP, but you don't have a specific instructor course. So that's what's very different. And like I said, that's where the course coordinators are very important, as well as the medical director, that they should understand local protocols. They should understand how to teach. They should understand what, you know, EMS can and cannot do in their communities. But there's not a specific instructor course.
And also, I wanted to mention, we do have reciprocity with the AHA for PALS, that if you are a PALS instructor, you can also be a PEPP course coordinator, but it's not vice versa.
Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that extends to EPC as well?
I believe so, yes.
Great. I have no more chat questions in front of me, so again, I would welcome anyone to voice any questions over the phone or get their final questions in.
Hi, my name is Rowan.
Hi, go ahead.
What is the procedure for reciprocation from PALS to PEPP?
This is Susan. Right now, there's not necessarily, like I said, you can't get both at the same time. We've worked with American Heart on different things, but that's still, like I said, it's not like if you take one, it works over to the other. We understand that a lot of the hands-on skills may be similar, but it's not like you can take the hands-on skills in PALS and that would give you credit for PEPP. So right now, they are two still separate courses.
Thank you.
And on top of the skills aspect, there's also the American Heart Association awards C-SPEED's credits for PALS, and PEPP awards C-SPEED's credit for PEPP. But those have to be taken independently in order to get that credit.
Okay, any final questions? Okay, I think that's it. We'll let everyone off. Oh, we got one more question. What is the difference between EPC and PEPP since EPC is using the PEPP textbook right now? That's a good question.
As far as there's a significant amount of content difference in the way the content is designed, the people on the committee, and everything along those lines. The NAEMT committee, they do a great job. It's all internal NAEMT people, and they go through and they develop their content for their course, and the way it's distributed goes through the NAEMT, and everything goes through their process. The PEPP course itself, it's designed with a conglomerate of different associations. If you saw that list that was mentioned earlier, I mean, as was mentioned, I'm on the PEPP steering committee as the National Association of EMS Educators representative. We've got a representative from the NAEMT, from the National Association of EMS Physicians, and it's stakeholders throughout the industry who help develop this content. And when we go through and we develop and all of the content, it goes through a massive review process and before it gets disseminated. I don't know if one course is better than the other. It's different content. They're all built on the same processes and everything. If you look, the Pediatric Life Support Collaborative that was mentioned earlier, that's something that actually compares the different courses. We talk about some of the different terminology, but the goal of that process was to actually unify that terminology to make it across all the spectrums that we're talking the same language. So personally, as an educator, when I was a training officer before I came to University of Cincinnati, I'd like to have options that way, because I wanted regular pediatric education, and for PEPP, it's a 2-year cycle. So I like to have different options so that my providers were getting pediatric education at a minimum on an annual basis. But that's just my preference. There's no, it's not the same exact material. There's different scenarios, but it's the same topics that are being discussed. Would the other subject matters on the phone agree? Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, absolutely, Keith. Thank you.
Okay, the chat is clear. I guess we can leave it at that. As a reminder, we will send out a copy of these slides and recording likely tomorrow to everyone who's been able to join us. We certainly do appreciate your time. Dr. Fuchs, Mr. Widmeyer, everyone at the AAP, including Melissa, your help and assistance and time is greatly appreciated. I hope it's been worth everyone's while. I'm just going to go back 2 slides quickly before we call it a wrap and reinforce some resources that you all can check out. By all means, please visit the peppsite.com. You can also email pep@aap.org. You've got the AAP Life Support phone number here as well, and should go check them out on facebook.com at aap.pep. With that, we will call it a wrap. Once again, thank you for all of your time, and let us know if we can answer any questions or get you help set up with any materials or as a training center, or anything we can do to help you get aboard with PEPP. Thanks once again, and have a great day.
Happy Mess Week, everybody.
Yeah, happy Mess Week.